3.
Yummy like a gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for April 10th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, the woke mob better watch out because SEGA just announced that 2024 is the year of Shadow the Hedgehog. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host of Game Mess Mornings. It's Lex Luddy, everybody. Lexi, how are you doing?
Just like Shadow the Hedgehog, I too am oppressed by the woke mob.
That's right. The woke mind virus comes for Jordan Peterson, Shadow the Hedgehog, and Lex Luddy. These are the targets.
I really don't like being a part of that group. I really don't like being a part of any of that group.
Can't see why. Can't see the problem there. Yeah, well...
Listen, people already get me mixed up with another Lex, and that's problematic. So let's fucking not go there. But yeah, I'm not doing too bad. How are you doing, Grubb?
I'm doing good, busy, doing a lot all the time. I was doing my podcast last night, and then my mods guilted me for not streaming on Twitch anytime recently. So now I'm like, oh, you know what? They're right. I should be working more. That's a good point.
Yeah,
I should be creating more content. Not doing enough. So
I had that a little while ago. Someone asked me like when I was going to bring back the Start Menu podcast, and I was like, when I finish doing like 50 exams and also trying to get to LA and also trying to make money and also like trying to survive. But it's on the way. It's on the way.
On the way. The other thing I noticed is that I've been the clenched jaw. Like my jaw feels tight, and I'm like looking for like shortcuts to not have it be tight anymore. I'm like I went on the Google machine, Lexi, and I discovered this thing where it's like if you let your jaw hang and that little like button next to your ear opens up, and I'm rubbing that and it feels real nice. It feels real good. I don't know if it's helping, but I'm getting in there and I'm yeah, that feels good.
I'm at the point where like I'm almost 24 and for the last month my back has just hurt. Just like really fucking hurt. And so I'm really hoping that it's just stress, because otherwise I have to contemplate the idea that I am actually getting older, and that can't be happening.
No, that's impossible as far as I'm aware. Yeah, I believe that's allowed for you to happen. Yeah.
So it's definitely the stress that's doing it. I should shout out, I was actually, I went to a thing in person. I met people. Yeah, it turns out there are people who play video games in Ireland. There's people who make video games in Ireland.
What?
I was at the Fish Game Summit in Galway on Friday, where I interviewed a bunch of people, and those will be going up on Shack News. Someone in chat said, "Just Danny, come on now. We don't count him as Irish anymore. He left too long."
How many former like rock star Ireland employees were there? Like people that used to work there and now just have their own thing?
None. It was there wasn't even any Black Shamrock people. It was just like indie game developers.
Wow.
Mainly.
Okay. Very cool.
So it was really fucking grassroots. It was set up by the Galway Film Council. They've been doing it for like 3 years now. Last year it's where I interviewed Josh Sawyer. This year I interviewed Chela Ramanan and one of the creators of Sable, and they were great speakers. Mark Brown was also there from Game Maker's Toolkit. He did a really good talk on game jams. But yeah, it was a really great event, and it's cool to go to these small events and be like, oh shit, the people who make games are fucking rad. And like, as negative as the internet can be, even at like these small scale things, like the people who are making games are just cool and nice people, and they want to hang out and talk and tell you about the cool shit they're doing. They don't fucking care about the other stuff. They're just there to have fun.
Yeah, it turns out that even the people who play games are cool the second you get in person. That's the thing I've recognized over time is like all of the bullshit that happens online disappears in an instance. The second like we all get in person and we're hanging out, and none of that stuff ever comes up. No one ever comes up to me and brings up some stupid woke bullshit or whatever. Like, oh, you said something that made me feel like you're woke. And like, no one's ever said anything close to that. That's just all online bullshit. So I think
it's almost like no one likes hanging out with those people, so they stop inviting them to things because they're fucking losers.
Yeah, and I think some people are really good at like sort of compartmentalizing that stuff and keeping it online, or like not even notice it in the first place. And I envy them. They're better than I am. But it's always a strong reminder, like, hey, get in person. You can see some people who are just going to be human beings about everything, and that's always great.
I did have a great moment during the weekend where someone had told me that I was part of like the woke leftist cabal on the West Coast, and I was like, dude, I live in Galway.
What coast is closest to Galway?
The West Coast, so technically they were like kind
All
of
right, then. So what are you complaining about?
I do live on the Wild Atlantic Way, so like, yeah, maybe it's the woke Atlantic Way.
Hell yeah. All right, we should explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you were watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right.
So Jurassic Park, let's get into this.
Oh, no, just tell me, Team Electricity or Team Sanity?
No, it's fucking easy. It's the English language, motherfucker. It's not.
Yeah,
they're talking about the thing that they are talking about. People don't speak in double entendres.
It's weird that they're talking about the thing they're talking about, though, Lexi. That's weird. They don't do that in movies. All right, I'm sorry, everybody. I can't let it go. Sega announces Year of Shadow. This is from My Nintendo News. Today, Sega announced its latest campaign, Fearless, Year of Shadow, to celebrate the amazing fans of Sonic and Shadow. I think what happened here, the reason I'm doing like, oh, this is like a Sega standing against the woke mob, is there's a right-wing conservative sports commentator called Jason Whitlock, who has been fired from every job he's ever had, and now he works for Glenn Beck, and he has a show on the Glenn Beck network called Fearless. And so I saw that, and I'm just like, what are you talking about, Sega? But that's just me. That's just my brain going there. Yes, see, the last year Sega launched the Fast Friends Forever program, and there's a period between each one of those words, which is why I said it like that, which highlighted the special bond that Sonic and friends Tails, Knuckles, and Amy Rose share with their fans. This year, the focus shifts to everyone's favorite brooding hedgehog, Shadow, who is set to star in the upcoming video game Sonic Across Shadow Generations, as well as the highly anticipated movie Sonic the Hedgehog 3 later this year. The campaign celebrates what it means to be fearless and embracing your inner shadow by bravely facing challenges head-on with a gun. It doesn't say that part, but I'm sure that's a big
Sega
part of it.
telling us to go out and buy a Glock?
I think they're telling us to go out. It's like a Desert Eagle, right? He's got a Deagle.
Yeah.
He's got the biggest handgun you could possibly have. Yeah. Okay. Hey, Shadow the Hedgehog is here, and I've accepted that. We cannot do anything about Shadow the Hedgehog anymore. I guess I keep forgetting, though, over and over again, that he is someone that Sega can like rely on to like get kids excited about stuff, so they can have a whole year based on Shadow, and that is going to be the central theme of their marketing campaign. But he's the central theme of Sonic, the new Sonic Generations, with a remake, whatever that is, and he is going to be a big part of the movie. So clearly, they think Shadow's important. How important is Shadow, young person Lex Luddy?
So this morning, I went and I got coffee with a good friend of mine, Rhiannon Bevan, who is a reporting lead over at The Gamer and #1 Sonic shagger. I asked her, she was very excited, but also acknowledged that all this shit is fucking lame.
Yeah.
Listen. Maybe the coolest thing Shadow has ever done is now in my head, Shadow has taken Luigi out back and murdered him, because the year of Luigi is no longer. It's finally over.
You can't do a year of Luigi again after we've had a year of Shadow. Absolutely not.
So yeah, I think Shadow killed him execution style. I don't care, is what I'm saying. This is fine. If you like this, good for you. I don't care. None of those games are fucking good. Generations wasn't that good. You're being stupid. Those games are fine.
Some are fine, Lex Luddy says. Mobile game event. Okay, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to happen here. They're going to have a mobile game event. Play the Fearless mobile events in Sonic Forces and Sonic Dash for a chance to unlock powerful Shadow variants, including Super Shadow, Vampire Shadow, Sir Lancelot, and Dragon Hunter Lancelot. Okay, they're going to make Lego based on Shadow the Hedgehog, I guess. Sonic Speed Cafe, the official Sonic the Hedgehog themed restaurant, is serving up new locations, menu items, merch, and much more, featuring Shadow product themes, photo opportunities, and menu items. Fans can come celebrate the year of Shadow. Stay tuned for updates. There's going to be new locations, and I can go to a Sonic restaurant, because I would do that. I 100% would see what that's all about. And then if you can't make that happen, they will, of course, also be at the International House of Pancakes, where Shadow's Chaos Chocolate Pancakes will be a menu item until May 5th. So... here's the biggest issue I have with this. That won't be on the menu when we get there for Summer Game Fest in LA. So we can't all just go there and get our Shadow the Hedgehog on to be able to have a successful show. So we're screwed.
Yeah, and we all know there's nothing more chaotic than chocolate pancakes. Like,
when my kids eat it, that's actually true, though.
Have you seen a 6-year-old trying to eat one of those?
Yes.
It's a fucking war zone, man.
It's a mess.
This does raise a good question about something I do actually care about. What food should I eat when I'm in LA? Because I care about that way more than Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yeah, there's a couple of good restaurants to get chicken and waffles. They got some really good chicken and waffles out in LA. Korean food. There's a huge Korean scene in Los Angeles. One of the biggest Korean populations outside of Korea, I believe, is in Los Angeles. And
last time I ate Korean food, I got the shits in Germany, so this should go well.
Yeah, but that's Germany. That doesn't count. Like, this is the real deal, and this is like Korean barbecue is the slam. So do that. There's a couple other things. I mean, obviously, if you can get out to some like legitimate Mexican food, which is awesome in Los Angeles, that's worth having as well. Jan
is asking if I've heard of Cheesecake Factory, and I'm pretty sure that's one of the games Ben stars in.
Yes, that's right. And we were the one that put him there, so absolutely. We'll go to Cheesecake Factory as well. Let's fucking go.
Oh, hell yeah.
EA's Iron Man developer is now working on Battlefield as well. This is a story we talked about on the Bombcast yesterday. I have a slight update to it, just kind of like put some stuff in context. So let's recap. This is from Eddie McHugh at GameSpot. EA's Motive Studios, which is working on a new Iron Man game, is now assisting DICE in developing the future of the Battlefield franchise. This doesn't mean the Iron Man game is taking a back seat, though, as Motive GM Patrick Klaus said in a blog post, the game remains a priority for the studio and that it recently passed a development milestone. Klaus said a group of developers from Motive are now working with DICE, Criterion, and Ripple Effect on creating experiences that lead to the full potential of Battlefield. Motive joining the Battlefield team comes not long after EA closed Battlefield, co-developer Ridgeline Games. Okay, so a couple things are happening here. Let's start with Motive, and then we'll kind of get to the wider, like, what the hell is going on over at EA. So they said that they're going to be a 2-project team going forward, and that is going to be Iron Man and Battlefield. Lex Luddy, what does that leave out that came out last year? Does that leave out like maybe a Dead Space game? Literally
the second I saw this was, we're never getting that Dead Space 2 remake, are we?
So they were working on it. They were working on Dead Space 2, and they are no longer working on it. It is on the shelf because the first game had lackluster sales, is how it was phrased to me. Yeah, so if you were looking forward to a Dead Space 2, it's bad news. It straight up is just bad news. Does this mean it never happens? I don't know if that's the case. But as it stands right now, they were working on it. It was in the concepting phase, I believe, something like it was still in pre-production. And now that work has been put on the shelf, and they are done with it. And this studio is now making Iron Man and Battlefield. Which brings me to... go ahead,
question.
Please.
How the fuck have we gone to a point where remakes are no longer a safe bet? Like, are no longer a safe enough bet?
I don't know.
How have you made this whole thing so fucking unsustainable and expensive that remakes now can't sell enough? Remakes with huge fan bases that sold quite well. Like, that game shifted copies. They were talking about it shifting copies. Like... Anyway, continue.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the kind of thing where it's like maybe it sold enough to justify what they did with the first one, but they're like, they were expecting big enough sales to be like, all right, and this will power us through remaking a bunch of Dead Space games and making a bunch of new Dead Space games, and maybe the numbers just weren't there. And I'm like, man, if you just kept going, I bet it would grow over time. But what do I know? All right, so Battlefield, that's the answer? So EA is like looking around like, hey, we got this with a lot of unknowns.
Putting all of our teams on Call of Duty is working out so well for Activision.
Right.
It's like, and
let's be clear, Battlefield is not Call of Duty. It just straight up isn't. Now, I understand the thinking here to a certain extent. Battlefield is the closest thing they have to something that can get back up to that stratosphere that they're looking to get to. And so being like, okay, listen, it's a risk. I bet they know at EA that this is going to be a challenge, and there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to turn Battlefield into what they want it to be. And yet, it feels like, well, okay, well, maybe you should have some contingency plans if you know that's the case. Because Battlefield
maybe you should have a smaller project, like a remake or, something that you can have worked off in the side.
And as close as Battlefield is compared to the other EA projects and other EA franchises to getting that stratosphere, it's still a million miles away in a lot of ways. Where it's like, if you just put out a great Battlefield game, that doesn't really necessarily move the needle like it once did. It will get a lot of sales. It could do very well, but you're still going to be competing with several free-to-play shooters, including your own in Apex Legends, but Fortnite and Call of Duty Warzone and PUBG. There's a million things that people have out there that they can play for free. So the idea that you're going to put out a Battlefield for a premium price, well, maybe that does change. All right. Maybe you do a free-to-play Battlefield game going forward. For at least the multiplayer or a slice of the multiplayer is free-to-play. That is not necessarily some easy transition as well. How do you make Battlefield feel important? How do you make Battlefield monetizable with microtransactions? When people had a backlash to like seeing like prosthetic limbs in that one game and they lost their minds and they just couldn't handle it. Battlefield doesn't feel that malleable to me. So they're putting all their resources into this. It's going to be a big challenge. I just don't see this ending well. I don't know. What do you think, Lexi?
Yeah, I mean, Battlefield, I grew up in a weird time where Call of Duty was very much so in the process of winning the war. Like the PS3 was like the console I was playing when I was a teenager, when I was a young teenager. And so I was very much so there when everyone was trying to get in on this. I wasn't allowed in on any of it because my parents were like, you're not allowed to play Call of Duty. But I remember, like Medal of Honor tried to do this. Battlefield tried to do this. They tried to have these smaller scale games that could compete with Call of Duty and were more close quarters or whatever because they thought that they could take on Call of Duty. And it turned out, no, people just wanted Call of Duty. They didn't want something like Call of Duty. They wanted Call of Duty. And ultimately, that's why things like Apex Legends succeeded, was because it's not like, not Fortnite, but, PUBG. It's a very different thing. And it's not like Call of Duty. It's a very different thing. And, there are so many teams working on this. Like, you named out the developers there. There are so many people working on this project. It just seems like a huge, huge investment for something that, will probably make its money back, but, is it the tentpole franchise that it once was? I really don't know, unless they have data that says otherwise, unless they have data that says, people are chomping at the bit for a new Battlefield.
I mean, I think their numbers probably look better for the excitement for Battlefield than a lot of other things. And I think they're just kind of stuck in a place where, everything looks so risky, which is why you have a team like Motive, and you're like, hey, you work on an IP, you're going to work on Iron Man, and you're going to work on one of our IPs that is already established with all of our other teams, and you're going to work to just make it bigger and bigger rather than go make your own small thing off to the side. That doesn't mean there's not multiple variations of Battlefield. We probably do get some free-to-play multiplayer thing. We probably do eventually get a Bad Company follow-up. That feels like a break glass in case of emergency sort of situation that they are likely in right now.
Do you think Bad Company, Bad Company means something to you, but Bad Company wasn't that big for people of my generation?
Yeah, but I'm right. But I think that there's two things there. I think one is keeping that audience that is constantly asking for Bad Company, throwing them that bone creates enough goodwill that can maybe then, especially if there's a Bad Company crossover stuff with the multiplayer game, and you could take some of your content in there and take some of your items in there. I think they're hoping that goodwill can spill over. And then also, I think we've seen a bunch of times now that if there is something of a classic franchise or a classic story that or previous generations have cared about, when it gets announced and there is that excitement, that huge pop for that, people are like, younger people look around, I think sometimes and go, I'll check this out. I want to see what all these olds are talking about. I think that is a tool that these companies use sometimes. And I think Bad Company is one of those that can actually pull that off.
Personally, I never want to check out what the olds are talking about. I disregard everything you say.
No, that's completely fair. That's fine. Yeah, that's why we are gonna give the earth to you eventually. Listen, you got to give me some time here. Don't take everything away from me, please. All right. Battlefield is going to never going to. It was never going to go away. We were always going to get more Battlefield. I just think when I look at these companies and the way they operate, and they sort of have this black hole mentality of, we have one thing that it has this gravitational pull that pulls everything else into it, to the detriment of the rest of our roster. It hasn't worked out, and it felt like they were on the right path with stuff like a Dead Space remake, where it's like, okay, yeah, it probably did do fine. It probably did well enough. Can't you just give it another chance? Keep pushing down in that direction. Make people realize how important you think Dead Space is. A lot of people really do like Dead Space. I think if you announce a Dead Space 2 remake and also promise and there's a new game coming as well, I think that builds up the excitement and people go back for Dead Space 1 over and over again. Resident
honestly, they really are unlucky launching the same year as Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly, but Resident Evil wasn't built in a day, right? The current feelings around Resident Evil weren't okay. If you go back to the Resident Evil remake on GameCube, that probably wasn't the best seller ever, but it was a really solid seller for them, and that led them into Resident Evil 4, and then they've had ups and downs since then. But the current track of, hey, we're remaking these games one after the other, and making new games, it makes people feel like investing their time in the franchise is worth it. And what EA has done is oh, this was just one and done for you, so I'm glad I didn't spend my time and money on Dead Space 1, because you're not even going to do Dead Space 2 remake, let alone do something new in that franchise. I never believed you in the first place. That's what happened here, I think. So EA did not sell that their commitment to Dead Space was there, and surprise, it wasn't.
Yeah, and it does feel like everyone says they're hunting for a new IP. Everyone says they're hunting for a new thing that they own, that they can make stuff about. And when given the option to invest in something that they could reboot and have as their new IP and go in a new direction with, EA has gone, actually, no, we're just going to try Battlefield again, which they've tried to reboot several times.
Yep.
So, yeah, it seems perplexing.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, Persona has a color, I suppose. I want to ask you about this, Lexi, because I need someone to really explain it to me. We'll be right back after this. All right, we are back, and Persona 6 main color might have leaked. This is from George Yang at GameSpot. We might already know.
Quick important thing.
Yeah, please go ahead.
It was brought to my attention on Twitter that Mike Minardi now has a goatee.
Yes.
Yeah, and thus the ritual of Dark Mitch is complete.
Yeah, I was worried about this. I'm pretty sure that this is an evil doppelganger all along, but I do think that Dark Mitch has escaped the confines of Capcom's Dragon's Dogma 2 and has been unleashed upon the world.
This is a reverse Tron situation, is what we're saying.
He had the power, and it's out now. So clearly his electricity is going to go out. All right, Persona 6's main color is probably green. I don't know. Bunch of weirdos online are freaking out about this. There is a green paint can or a bucket of paint with that green paint. And then Sean explained something to me about how if you look at the characters backwards, they somehow spell out the hex code for a color of green, a shade of green. I didn't really understand what he was saying. I just nodded and smiled because I'm afraid of Persona fans. What's going on here?
So what it was they put out a piece of artwork for the 25th anniversary of the series last year, and the order that the characters were in, if you applied the number of the game, like Persona 1 for the Persona 1 characters, Persona 5 for the Persona 5 characters, if you read that backwards, then that would be a hex code that was the same shade of green as the green that was in the bucket next to them. And the reason people were like, getting so excited about it is because Persona fans are fucking weird. But also, I think a lot of the tone of those games comes with the color and the
clearly a stylistic game.
Yeah.
And having sort of a basis of like where that style exudes out of. I get it. Like, listen, from looking from a distance, I'm like, those games look slick.
And I think the thing for Persona fans is they read so much into that stuff, because even when, Persona 5 Royale came out and it added more gold to the color scheme, like that felt like it was part of the story and the tone and the narrative that they were going for. And I think in this one, what they're trying to convey is that the next Persona game will be set in Cork. So yeah, it's going to be Irish. Everyone's going to be from Cork. They're all going to say like a bunch.
Well, let's celebrate that. It's green, everybody. Green for Ireland and Persona. Let's fucking go. We did it. Woo! Sorry, there's confetti going down for audio listeners and pizza slices and Elf. I have this scene. I'm going to use it, everybody. That's just how it is. All right. Yeah, there's
that does good things to the bitrate. That really does.
Oh yeah, the bitrate loves that. Man, when I first did that, I was still at like 4,000 kilobits per second on a 1080 60 stream, and it was just destroying it. It was just absolutely.
Someone in chat says a Japanese take on Ireland would be something. Let me tell you about a game called Folklore.
Ooh, is that Skittles game?
No, it's a PS3 RPG set in Ireland, and it's not very good.
Oh, okay. Well, is it Blight Club worthy?
No, it's just one of those not that great turn-based PS3 RPGs where they hadn't figured out how to move those systems into the HD era and like maybe make them a bit less turn-based and a bit more like dynamic. It's fine.
When does Persona 6 get announced?
I think the question is less when does it get announced and it's more how many times does it get delayed after it's announced.
Sure. Okay. Give me that.
Because like these games are always delayed. Like Persona 5 was announced in like fucking 2013, 2014, and then didn't come out until 2017. There were loads like that game went through a really hard reboot. Yeah, Sean's saying announced maybe next year. I could see being announced at the Game Awards. I could see it being announced at a TGS early next year. Those are like the two options, I think, for them. The Persona franchise is definitely still growing. Like the most recent one sold 1 million in a week, which is better than any other ones previously. So I definitely think that there's maybe a chance of them going for a Western event like the Game Awards or something. But if we're talking about like first look at the game, it would definitely be at TGS before one of the Western shows.
Fair enough. Yeah, and then I mean, it just feels like a game that should be here sooner rather than later. But you all seem to be expecting very similar sort of development, like beats and release beats, and that's maybe beats from Atlas.
Persona team have been working on a bunch of games recently because they've released Persona 3 just this year. They're releasing Mesh 4 ReFantasio this year.
Right.
Technically, Persona 5 Tactica, some of the internal Persona team worked on that. So, like, they have been working on a lot of different games, so I don't expect it to be super soon.
Cool. All right. Well, hey, Blizzard games are returning to China this summer. This is from Alex Hopley at Game Reactor. Blizzard and NetEase have confirmed a new deal, which will see the former's games brought to China for the first time since Blizzard and NetEase's old partnership died last year. We at Blizzard are thrilled to reestablish our partnership with NetEase and to work together with deep appreciation for the collaboration between our teams to deliver legendary gaming experiences to our players in China. And that's according to Blizzard's president, Joanna Ferries. We are immensely grateful for the passion the Chinese community has shown for the Blizzard games throughout these years, and we are focused on bringing our universes back to players with excellence and dedication. Of course, this is notable because these companies had a very public breakup. Like last year or 2 years ago, something like that. They had it was probably last year because it was like near the end of the deal between Microsoft and Activision. And as part of that public breakup, NetEase was like, hey, we're going to give our employees sledgehammers, and they're going to destroy all these World of Warcraft things that we have on our in our office park. And they were just like,
they're going to make someone go outside and like put them back together.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are they going to do? They're going to put it back together, right? Yeah. But whatever. It's all business in the end. Also, I'm sure it helps that Bobby Kotick is gone. This is Phil Spencer making this deal, is my understanding. And also NetEase nuts. That's correct. Yes. Yeah. There you go, everybody. Yeah, this was, it was inevitable, I guess, that these games would be back in China. I think I'm a little surprised that it's back with NetEase. They didn't like find a new partner just because the breakup was so messy. And at the same time, it's like, well, yeah, that's the path of least resistance. So it's not too surprising, right?
Yeah, I think I actually had this conversation just today of it's really interesting looking at Microsoft at the moment, because it seems like a company where their relationship with third parties is really, really good at the moment. Like, they're very good at managing their third party relationships, getting things on Game Pass, you know, working with Japanese developers, getting them in showcases, working with NetEase now and getting Blizzard back into China. And like, Overwatch was huge for them in China when it launched, and it was a huge part of the esports scene too. And they're trying to make another push for the esports scene of Overwatch. So it makes sense that they're trying to get it back up there. But then when you look at the internals of Microsoft, a lot of the stuff that you see are like, hey, like, why are you not shipping any first-party games? Why are the first-party games that are shipping not living up to, you know, the standard that people are expecting, and what's going on there? So you do have to wonder at some point if there's so much attention being given to third parties that some of the management of first-party studios has been lost, or that it was never even there. So I am kind of curious about that.
Yeah, it does feel like, you know, they're spread so thin, right? But I mean, I think part of it just comes down to for first party and like what we perceive as it getting a little bit less love, a little bit less juice, is maybe a lack of vision in the first place. Of, you know, there's no one coming down from the top and providing like this sort of the strong leadership that says this is what our games can be. It's more standoffish and saying, hey, your games can be what you guys think they can be. Go ahead and make that thing. And I think that is beneficial to a lot of these teams, and it's a detriment to many of the other teams. And then as far as like these big deals, clearly they have to be taking some attention and resources away from establishing a vision like that, because, you know, it does seem like Phil Spencer legit just traveled to China, went to go talk to these partners. And we know he's constantly traveling to all these places. He's been to Japan a bunch of times, talking to partners there. And that's got to be very distracting at the very least. And at the same time, these are things they couldn't ignore. China's a massive market. Getting back into there, I'm sure, was a priority. It also probably makes Blizzard games financially make a lot more sense all of a sudden again. So not surprised that.
Yeah, it's definitely an evaluation of which one you're going to get more value out of. But I think it's something that you saw with the Daniel Dwyer documentary on Pentiment, where they talked to Josh about getting the game made. And this is something I talked to him about as well when I interviewed him, of like getting that game greenlit was much easier because of Game Pass. And Xbox were like, yeah, we're fine for you to go work on your own thing, and like, we're not really going to be tampering with it, and like, go make your weird stuff. And that works for them.
Yeah, it works for them.
But then you also have the story of Arcane and Redfall, where they weren't getting that much feedback from Microsoft. And they were like, oh, well, Microsoft probably want us to make a live service game. And then you get Redfall. And you don't have someone coming in and saying like, hey, guys, this probably isn't your core competency. Like, we bought you to do this one thing. So, yeah, it's hard to know what's going on in Microsoft at the moment. And it's always been hard. It's a very locked down company. It's a very secretive company. And so it can be hard to figure out what their grand plan is, and if there even is one. But this seems like just like a no-brainer thing that needed to get done as soon as we signed Blizzard.
Yeah. And, you know, and Redfall definitely started under Bethesda before they were at Microsoft, but it's the kind of thing where like they were continuing that project, making it the way that they were making it, with the understanding that like this is the kind of game that our leadership would want. And what we heard is like there was just not really that come to Jesus moment where everyone came together and was like, hey, what are we really doing here? Is this what we should be doing? Is this what you want us to be doing, Microsoft? Could you help us make this better? And none of that ever happened. And they've admitted that publicly a bunch of times now. And, you got to hope that's like, you have teams dedicated to these different problems of third party partnerships, and then you have teams dedicated to making sure the first parties are making games as well as they can. But yeah, we just haven't seen that manifest yet.
Is Pete Hines still at Bethesda? Because I loaded up that. I could have sworn I saw him when I loaded up the Elder Scrolls announcement thing for their new DLC, and he was talking at it, and I was like, I thought you left. So I need to figure out why he's hanging about. Is he just hanging around the offices of Bethesda, being like, hey guys, I still want to hang out here?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's like one of those slow transitions out of the business or something like that. I think he said he announced he was leaving. I don't know if he's necessarily gone yet. Maybe that was something that is going to happen later this year. I'm not entirely sure. All right. Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake has apparently been completely redone from the ground up. This is from My Nintendo News. There was a fair amount of fan criticism leveled at Ubisoft's Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake, so much so the game was passed off to another developer. Today, further details have emerged regarding the remake of the critically acclaimed Prince of Persia title, and this comes from Insider Gaming specifically, and it would appear as though the game has been completely rebooted from the version we originally saw. The team at Ubisoft is approaching the game with a more realistic art style, and everything has been built from the ground up on the project. Here's the details. The game is completely redone. Ubisoft Mumbai and Prune, previous work is seemingly not used at all. Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake's overhaul also includes a more realistic approach. Everything has been built from the ground up, which includes a complete graphical overhaul, new animations, and mechanics for combat and parkour, and much more. Starting from scratch has meant that the game has been rewritten, recaptured in mocap, and more, and Yuri Lowenthal is not reprising his role as the prince.
Is this like the most blowback from like a handful of screenshots?
Yeah.
Like the biggest pivot that we've seen in development? Because like there was obviously stuff like Wall Guy back in the day with Perfect Dark, but like this is literally an entire game being scrapped based off of a handful of screenshots and a couple of seconds of footage. Like,
yeah, I mean, the game didn't look great, but I was just like, I was of the opinion like, yeah, I mean, look, it's a remake of an old game. They're not going to put that much into it. I bet it's still fun. I'm like worried about like what do you mean like redoing the combat and parkour? Like, okay, maybe you could add more to the combat. I suppose that could always be more complicated and have some like fun like little things salted across the various features you have there to make it a little bit more engaging these days. Sure, the parkour you kind of don't need to touch it. We don't get a lot of those games that work that way. I suppose they could be improving that too. I'm being pessimistic, but. I just like this is not necessarily what I'm asking for. I'm not asking for a super realistic remake of Prince of Persia Sands of Time that has different mechanics than what I just want to play that game again, and I want it to look a little bit better. That's a game that I think was fantastic at the time. I bet it still mostly holds up. I've not played it in a long time, and I was looking forward to this remake to do exactly that. I don't know. Have you ever played Sands of Time? It was definitely like something I played coming out of high school. So like that's how long ago it was.
No, I've never properly gone into like any of the Prince of Persias because when I would have been playing them was when they were like bouncing between rebooting the universe and not rebooting the universe.
Yes.
Like they did that one game, then they rebooted it, then they went back to the old version for a different sequel. So I just found it like I was way too fucking confused by it. I saw the movie when I was 8 and I thought it was rad, because I was fucking a dumbass. And I was like, oh, Jake Gyllenhaal's in this. He's handsome. And that was kind of like my critical thinking of it at the time.
Have you seen it again recently? I've not seen that movie before. I've always been curious about watching it.
I've been tempted. One of these days, I'm going to watch like the Assassin's Creed movie, Vash, and like the Hitman movies all back to back. And then I'll probably have a heart attack and die.
Yeah, that sounds about right. They're going hard on Prince of Persia. So we have that Prince of Persia, the Lost Crown game that came out earlier this year. We have rumors of that Dead Cells developer making a Prince of Persia roguelite, which sounds very, very promising. And then they're putting a lot of extra effort into this. Yes, so it seems like the kind of thing where I'm like, okay, they seem like we have, we have Assassin's Creed, we have some of these other projects, and we're really focused on those, and we've been doing that for years and years. But maybe we can build Prince of Persia back up to that place of prominence as well. Do you think it has the standing to get back to that point?
like to think so. Like, that franchise is super important to video games when you look at it. Like, it's incredibly important to original computer games back in the day, the Jordan Mechner stuff.
Yep.
It's super important to the foundation of modern open world games in that it basically like created Assassin's Creed and that template. Yeah, I think it would be cool if they could find a way to bring it back and make it its own thing that is unique from Assassin's Creed, because Assassin's Creed is now so much of its own thing. Mike's in chat saying that he has a story, but I think he just means that it's his turn on Blight Club next.
I think that's right. I think that's what he's trying to say, and not anything else that would cause him harm in any way. Yeah, the Peebs Exicle in chat says, I watched Sansa Time in the hospital on morphine and remember it being a blast. So, all right, I think I know what I'm doing this weekend. Let's have a real good time watching some Jake Gyllenhaal, everybody. I can't get that Roadhouse movie out of my head. It's not good. It's not, and I think I think the original Roadhouse is bad in a fun way, where it's actually at the end of the day not that bad, because it like holds up over time and gets better the more times you watch it. So it's like, technically, no, this is not a bad film. It's just made in a way that like resembles a bad movie. This new Roadhouse is bad in the way that I think people will mostly forget about it. And yet, as for shitty as he is, every time Conor McGregor came on the screen, it was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. He's just it's terrifying and hilarious.
Turns out that man being a massive like dirtbag and shithead, turns out he's just like that. Like, not much acting was going on.
I really think that's exactly true. They're like, hey, just pretend you're gonna go fight someone that you think is pathetic, and he's
or,
like, okay,
approach a woman, because he's also like that.
Right. He seems to have some actual issues, like some serious like mental issues beyond just like what he's going on with this
actual ultra nationalist scumbag. Like, Irish people hate him. But I'm just kind of bummed that like Doug Liman made that and he's not allowed to go make Edge of Tomorrow 2. Like, fucking.
Isn't there a rumor that he's making Edge of Tomorrow 2, or is that?
There's been a rumor he's making Edge of Tomorrow 2 for like a decade now. That's been on his IMDb page. Tom Cruise is constantly being asked about it, and he's like, oh yeah, I want to do it. Like, everyone wants to do it, but no one can like get it off the ground. God. That movie fucking rips. That
would be fantastic. The other thing about that Roadhouse movie is like they use so much weird CG to like finish like a bunch of fights and punches and stuff, and like the virtual camera takes over. It's so weird. Yeah, they used a new like approach, like a new technique that they were like hyping up, and now people are looking at it and they're like, this is weird. This isn't ready yet. Yeah, it's a weird movie. All right, Epic Mickey Switch Remake translates motion controls to analog sticks and enhances the camera. This is from Liam Doolin at Nintendo Life. Earlier this year, during a Nintendo Partner Showcase, it was announced the 2010 Wii title, Epic Mickey, would be making a return to the Switch this year in a brand new, faithful remake titled Disney Epic Mickey Rebrushed. The remake's senior producer, Pan Schroeder, has now shared more information about this upcoming release, and revealing how there will be quality of life improvements, camera enhancements, analog stick controls, and more. Here's what he had to say during a recent chat with GameSpot. The video is up now on GameSpot, by the way, everybody. We had to change the controls, we had to enhance the camera, and we needed to translate motion controls to analog sticks, while needing to keep the heart of the game intact. And don't worry, if you want to play this title like the original release, motion controls will still be an option for you freaks out there, I guess. So you could channel the Nintendo Wii days. GameSpot also shared 8 minutes of gameplay, and again, that's that footage that's on there. Jan says it was pretty good when he played it. I know Kurt Indovina, who did this video, was like, "Yay, like it's pretty good." I think for me, hearing that the analog controls work and the camera has been improved, that's like a big step up for me as someone who's like, whenever I touched that game very briefly at the time, was like, oh, a 3D platformer that isn't Mario Galaxy where you can't control the camera seems like a bad time. And it turns out for the most part in that game, it kind of was. So I'm like, oh, if that edit fixes a lot of those elements of this game, maybe you can more quickly get to the fun of what Epic Mickey had. Not that it had not that it was like a bountiful feast of fun. It's a pretty solid game underneath all that. So I'm hopeful. I don't know. How about you?
But the real question is, like, even if it makes it good, will it make it important?
Well, listen, I'm no Jeff Backlund. I don't feel competent to comment on such a thing. But we do know Epic Mickey not nearly as important as, I don't know, what would Dan
Figment the Dragon,
Air Force Gator, sure, yeah, a bunch of other things, yeah. I mean, he's in the public domain now. He's doesn't count anymore. Doesn't even register. That's how that works, right?
Does this mean? I wonder what Mickey Mouse being in the public domain means for like selling that game. If it changes anything in how they have to write their legal copy of like, hey, you can't just rip assets from this.
Probably not much, because so much of that game would be, well, I suppose if Epic is in the public domain, that means that fucking rabbit that they were all freaking out about, that predates Mickey Mouse, he would also be public domain. So there would be stuff in there that you would be able to like riff on, but if they did anything sort of like original with the story or had new character elements, stuff would be now under a new copyright that started in 2010. So it's really messy with that kind of thing. You would not be able to rip assets from the game, though. That actually wouldn't work, because that would be copyrighted by this team.
So filmmaker aficionados in tatters, how are they going to make their porn now?
I know, right? They'll have to find some other way to do it. Epic Mickey Steam filmmaker porn is my favorite genre, though. All right, Star Wars Outlaws Season Pass is already causing controversy. This is from Kyle Knight at DualShockers. Yesterday afternoon, Ubisoft revealed the very first story trailer for its upcoming open-world adventure game, Star Wars Outlaws. Alongside a new trailer, the studio also confirmed an August 30th release date and the various pre-order bonuses and additions, which are now available for pre-order. However, shortly after pre-orders for the next big Star Wars game went live, fans quickly took to Twitter and Reddit to express their outrage at not only the pricing, but at the inclusion of a season pass as well. Over the years, season passes have become the go-to way for studios to add extra monetization to games, even if they already come with a hefty $70 price tag. While there are plenty of free-to-play games on the market that also offer season passes, such as Fortnite, Apex Legends, and Call of Duty Warzone, a trend has started to emerge where single-player games also offer the same incentives. Some believe there's no harm in giving players the option to purchase additional content, but others believe it has no place in the world of single-player games. So yeah, a season pass for a single player game does feel strange to me. It's the kind of thing of like, why not just make it a DLC pack? So when I buy it, I get all that stuff. But apparently they care about engagement, so they're doing a season pass. I'll say at the very for this game, Star Wars Outlaws Legacy, they are throwing everything at it. Like there's multiple versions that are special editions that are like $110 and $130. If you get one of those versions, you get the game 3 days early. They're like doing all of the tricks to try to maximize their return on investment here. And we know why. The Star Wars license is expensive. So I'm not like shocked that they're doing these kinds of things, but it does feel like, hey, a season pass is the kind of thing that could spoil some of that fun, where it's like, why are you making your game this way when you could just make it better and have some other way of monetizing it instead? But it seems like their answer to that is, well, no, we're doing all of the ways of monetizing it. I don't know. How do you feel about it, Lexi?
Yes, it's the Like a Dragon problem. It's the Persona problem of like the things that they put behind the DLC paywall feel like things that probably should have been in there. The DLC for Like a Dragon, you didn't play it, but it's a post-game dungeon. And like, it's a fun dungeon, and there's some good stuff in there, and there's some really good writing. And it's like, oh, this is like just like a non-canonical fun goof or whatever, and it would have been cool if that was included. Persona 3 is probably more egregious because it's the Answer DLC, and that was part of one of the previous games, and that like ties up some of the story and shit. I think it will very much so. The thing I always wonder about these is like, how many people go back and play the DLC? How many people go back and play DLC for the single-player games after their release? How many people are going back and playing the Final Fantasy 16 DLC and things like that? Also, did you see that fucking adding the lady from Solo into this?
Yeah, Kira. Yeah. I mean, I don't love that, but that's very specific to my Star Wars fandom, where I think that movie wasn't very good in terms of establishing Han Solo as a character, but the movie's fine otherwise for a lot of reasons.
But it once again reinforces the canonical existence of Teras Kasi, which is very important.
That is actually important. She is the character that said Teras Kasi, I believe, right?
Yeah, so she's the one who's trained in that fighting style.
That's right, yeah. So she's the leader of the Crimson Dawn, which is that the crime syndicate that I think was established originally in Solo by Darth Maul. Spoilers for fucking Solo. And then she takes it over. And so she's the leader at the point of that. This also means that she's still alive between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, which I guess did we know that? I suppose we We might have known that.
I also, like, just as a side note, I really fucking hope there aren't, like, lightsabers in this game. Like, not like, you know, there can't be any Jedi, but, like, I just hope that I just think it would be fucking better if they made the Outlaw game an Outlaw game, and instead of trying to tie it into the grand narrative.
The only way that a lightsaber could, well, not the only way. The primary way a lightsaber could show up in this game is if Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader show up. And that's pretty much it. I suppose the Emperor could bring out his lightsaber. Well, I mean, Yoda's still alive. You go see Yoda. So you go see Yoda, and he pulls out his tiny lightsaber, and that's a fun time for everybody, which is a fun sentence to say. Yeah, I'm pretty hopeful that they are making the Outlaw game that you are talking about, Lexi. That's what I want them to make. That's what they're selling here. We'll see, though. I'm
super curious to see what the gameplay loop of this game actually is, and what the progression is. And, like, there's one world where this is very similar to Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order, where you just go to different planets and they're quite linear within that, but they have this Metroidvania design so you can double back and explore them more. Or there's a world where, like, these are small open worlds. And I'm super curious to see which route they went, and see how much it is. Like, I really hope this game isn't, we made a bunch of small open worlds and now you clear bases and you liberate these planets and then eventually it's your planet. Like, I can
tell you exactly what it should be like. It should be like Sid Meier's Pirates. It should be you are going from town to town.
That was not the game I was expecting.
Clearly it can't be exactly like that, but Sid Meier's Pirates is a game where it's like you are on the high seas most of the time. You're going from town to town, and you're spotting things like the chances to do arbitrage selling, where you see something selling for really low in one town, you take it to another town, and you sell it for a higher price. And you know, so like the smuggling element, and then there's definitely going to be like factional quests where you can like endear yourself to these factions and unlock more quests. I just hope that stuff stays interesting. But I also hope there's a chance for me to be like sort of on my own, doing my own thing, and all of the factions hate me, and yet there's still like a path through the game for me. That's ideally what I would want to do.
Someone in chat also said that apparently people aren't happy about how this game isn't sexy enough, and I'm not sure if they saw that droid. That droid is real fucking sexy.
Fuck the hell out of that droid.
Have you seen that droid's hips? What the fuck? And that fucking trench coat?
They don't lie.
Like, Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fucking wild.
Sometimes you just say stuff on the show, everybody.
Gamers. Yeah, try harder, gamers. You're just not trying hard enough. You can't whack off to that game.
Yeah, try harder to whack off to the video game, everybody. Come on. I'm excited about this game. That's the real story here. Is I'm excited about it. I think it looks pretty good. The pricing, listen, they're going to try to get more money out of you, especially if you're a big Star Wars fan. That's what these things do. I was kind of conflating the Season Pass and Battle Pass earlier. Still, Season Pass for a game like this is maybe a little bit annoying, but of course they're going to sell that shit these days. And of course they're going to include it in the big Ultra Edition that you could spend $110 on. I've accepted these things, Lexi, and I'm also someone who's like accepted. I bet if I bought just the base version and played through that, I won't feel like I'm missing anything, probably. So
yeah.
All right, last story here. Fans claim that the $80 Call of Duty King Kong glove cosmetic is, quote, not worth it. This is from Jordan Midler at VGC. The item, which is a beast glove inspired by the new Kong Cross Godzilla film, is acquired by purchasing 4 separate skin packs in the game. The glove is a melee weapon that can be equipped as part of a loadout and is only accessible to players who've purchased all 4 separate skin packs. Each of these packs, which include operator skins and weapons inspired by the film, cost $20 each. Okay. Where are you at with cosmetics these days, Lex Luddy? Are you someone who is like, hey, I'm going into shops in any of these free-to-play games, and I'm going to buy a thing here or there? Or do you try to complete sets? Are you someone who would ever spend $80 for a set with the goal of getting a glove in mind?
I was going to say that, like, I just don't buy any skins at all in games anymore. But then I realized that I did upgrade to the special edition of Helldivers because I was enjoying that so much, and I was like, I think this game is worth $60, not 40, or €60, not 40. But I can't think of a single one of these crossover events where I've been like, yeah, I want the fucking Cheech and Chong skin. Like, it just always seems like the lamest shit. it's something that like people have talked about very eloquently before and written about before, of like the Fortnite-ification of all these different games, where like suddenly no multiplayer game is allowed to be serious or have its own universe or have its own storyline anymore.
That was one of the main problems with the Naughty Dog Last of Us multiplayer game, is they couldn't figure that out.
Yeah, because how do you insert crossover events into it? How do you get co-marketing deals? How do you get people to sponsor things in it? And I fucking hate that shit. I really like. I know that it's fucking funny to see the xenomorph dab. I enjoy that, but also I could just rig a xenomorph to dab in Unity if I wanted to. Like, I could get that done if I really wanted to get it done. As someone who loves those recent monster movies from Legendary, this isn't fucking worth it. Who the fuck is buying this? Who the fuck is watching that movie and going, I want King Kong's fucking glove, his metal glove?
Well, that's a pretty cool glove, to be fair. I'm not going to spend $80 to get it, though. In chat, I think it was Death Metal Dan said, just don't buy something if you don't like it or don't think it's worth it. It's easy. And I'm like, that's mostly where I land on these kinds of things, Lexi, where it's like, I go into a store every single day and I don't buy 99% of the things in that store. Like every time I go into a store, it's not like, oh my God, I'm being bombarded with all these options. I'm just like, I came here to buy the thing I came here to get. And there's other stuff on the shelf. I can ignore it and I can leave. And yet, I think it's probably still valuable that we occasionally have some pushback against these companies trying to raise the price on everything and trying to like do these little tricks of, here's an item you can only get if it's really like the people are right. It's really an $80 item. Sure, it's a bunch of other items that come with 4 different $20 packs. But the fact that one item is locked behind all of that, clearly what they're trying to do is to get you to spend $80. You're like, oh, I already spent the 20 and I have half of the stuff. I might as well get the rest. Some pushback here is beneficial. These companies are going to get away with whatever you let them get away with. I'm super for people saying like, hey, this is not fucking worth the money. Like, yes. What are you trying to, like, that's how you phrase this. You don't say like, hey, this is a scam, because a scam is very clearly trying to trick you. 100%.
This is just like, hey, this isn't worth the monetary value that you've attached to it, because it's not. It's not worth the value that they've, like, this is not worth a video game and a bit.
Yep.
So yeah, if you don't think it's worth that, fucking tell them that that isn't worth your money.
I wonder how like the money situation works for all these, where it's like Godzilla Cross Kong comes out and they're going to do a big event with Call of Duty. Like, who is paying who for that? Is it like something like where they're like, maybe we just split the revenue? I don't know.
It's the Jeff Keighley thing of like, what game developers pay to get into those conferences and what developers does Jeff go to?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm super curious as to how those things work out, but I just hope Dan Stevens is getting paid, because that guy's great. He's fantastic in that movie. What a fucking weirdo. What a handsome man who just loves being in weird movies.
Did you go see it? You went to go see Kong versus Godzilla, or Kong?
Yeah, it's
Godzilla?
great. There's a scene where Kong throws pocket sand in Godzilla's eyes.
I did see that in the trailer. That owns.
Yeah, and then Godzilla suplex Kong. It's real fucking good. It's stupid as hell. It's definitely like, it's not like Godzilla -1, which is, a masterpiece of filmmaking.
You gotta get you a kaiju that can do both. Like, absolutely.
I genuinely do kind of love that Adam Wingard was this guy who made You're Next, and everyone was like, oh, he's the next horror maestro, we'll give him a Blair Witch movie. And then that didn't do too well, and they're like, okay, we'll give him a license thing, and he goes and he makes that terrible Death Note thing. And then he's just gonna like, fuck it, I'm just gonna play with my toys. I'm just gonna like make these movies where these monsters fight each other and like barely even have human characters in them, because that shit's fun. And like, I appreciate that. It's dumb fun, and like, yeah, I had a good time.
All right. Well, apparently that movie's doing very well. I'll check it out eventually at some point. I'm just ready to watch Dune 2 again. That's what I'm really
also
all about.
Monkey Man, fantastic. Monkey Man's really good.
I'll see that as well. God, Dev Patel. He's handsome for a man. I'll say that.
Jesus,
I'll say that in public.
That man is incredible looking in that movie.
Yes, and everything. All right, that does it for the news. I'm gonna get to the poll question. While I get that set up, Lexi, why don't you tell people where they can find you, what you have going on, whether or not you're going to be in Los Angeles for Summer Game Fest, all that good stuff.
Yes, so over the next few days, you can catch my stuff on Shack News. I interviewed some people at the Fish Game Summits, and I'll be going up there. You can also find my community start menu, trying to help people break into the video games industry. We're at the start menu on Twitter, or you can email us hello@startmenu.co.uk. I will be at LA for Summer Games Fest.
Yeah.
If you want to commission me, please fucking commission me, because it's really hard to get appointments without a site commissioning you to get an appointment. So yeah, if you need help covering the show, reach out. I'll be there for pretty much the entire week. So any events going around, the play days, and the actual event itself. I don't think they've confirmed the play day, so I won't say when I'm there. And yeah, if I'm allowed anywhere near the fandom offices, I'll probably mill around there, because I'm sure as hell not getting invited to any after parties. I don't know any Americans.
You could try that. We're not going to be at the fandom offices this time, at least as far as I'm aware. Last time I discussed.
Oh, shit.
Well, a secret location that I will inform you about. You come hang out with us. Absolutely.
Okay.
That'd be great.
I want to go somewhere that I won't fucking die.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, well, listen, no promises. All right. It's Los Angeles.
You're right. I've said a lot of shit about Mike Minotti. That man's angry.
I'm worried about the LAPD. We can't control them. That's the one thing I'm worried about. All right. Let's see. Which do you prefer, higher frame rates or higher resolutions? 83% says higher frame rates. Only 17% are going with higher resolutions. I think this is one thing where I agree with this. I voted for higher frame rates, Lexi. But if resolutions got down low enough, I would start to say, okay, let's get the resolution back up from 480 or 560 or whatever the next one is. Can we at least get 720p? And even that feels kind of low these days, especially when I'm playing on my 4K TV over here that I sit pretty close to. But if I had to choose one or the other, I'm choosing frame rate. That's where I'm at. I don't know. How about you?
Yeah, I have a super funny thing where, because I had the PS3 when I was growing up, and I used to play loads of Borderlands 2, and I played high level Borderlands 2 where you were at max level and you had 2 rocket launchers and it was just killing the fucking frame rate. Whenever a game dips down into a low frame rate, I'm like, yeah, good shit's happening. Fuck yeah.
Oh, I do
this
like
means
that.
We're fucking, yeah, it's oh yeah, we're fucking breaking shit. I like that feeling. But also, yeah, a nice frame rate's way better.
I have a terrible memory, but one of the best gaming moments that just I could see in my head perfectly, crystal clear, is when I was playing Hardline Shipbreaker, that Shipbreaker game.
Shipbreaker or whatever.
Yeah, Hard Ship, and it was early on. I think it was still in early access, and I had my laser beam cutting apart the ship, and I just went right across its nuclear reactor. And all of a sudden, I'm I just get it explodes and flings me away, and then the game just completely freezes, and then it's 1 frame per second for 12 straight seconds as I'm turning my character back around to look at this giant nuclear explosion in space, and it ruled so hard. That was so
There's a real understated beauty to playing Gary's mod on a computer without a graphics card, and what you can do to that computer. Boy, I fucking probably messed up some laptops by doing that.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's right. It's hard boiled Shipbreaker. That's what it is.
Yeah.
All right. There was another poll question, because we did 2. Are you excited about Star Wars Outlaws? 48% said yes. 52% said no. 50-50. I suppose I think this is where all major IPs are at right now. I think if you had a shocking kind of new IP come out of, or an IP that hasn't been overdone in a lot of media right now, I think people would be yeah, I'm excited about that. But I think there's a lot of people for whom Star Wars and Marvel, the massive pervasive IPs have been everywhere for so long that they're why would I be excited about this? I haven't had a chance to miss it. So I'm not surprised that this is at 48% versus 52%. How do you feel about it, Lexi? Really deep down, Star Wars Outlaws, if if you were someone spending your own money on these games, showing up, how would you feel about it?
As someone who usually is spending my own money on these games, I am excited for it in the sense that I am afflicted with consuming most Star Wars media.
Right.
I'm cursed that way. Same with Marvel. At some point, my brain went, yeah, you should watch all of these. And then I got through halfway watching the Inhumans, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? And then I watched the rest of it.
Don't do, oh my God. All right. You don't have to do that.
Listen, I made it into content for a podcast. It was worth it.
That's the way to get through most things.
The feeling.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
But yeah, I think it looks good, so I'm excited for it. It's kind of as simple as that. So as long as like it keeps on looking good, then I'll continue to be excited for it. But yeah, I'm hopeful. I want to play it.
Yeah, and I didn't even like think about this. Don Fiasco in chat says this is more about Ubisoft than Star Wars for them. And it's like, oh yes, a lot of people are going to be, they do have that thing where like, I don't play Ubisoft games. And I think the assumption here is this is going to be another one of those. And in my heart, I'm like hoping it's not just another one of those. Even if it has some elements of that, I would be fine. I mean,
to give Ubisoft credit, like as much as Avatar was one of those, it seems like they're trying to deviate. It seems like they're trying to,
and that was massive
innovate.
As well. Yes.
Yeah. So I am curious to see what other directions they can go.
Yeah, but I wasn't thinking about that, and I bet that is a significant number of the no's are people who are like, I don't trust a Ubisoft game until it's in front of me, and I don't put it in front of me until it's $30. So I'm not going to get excited about it until that point. All right, finally, the new poll question. Persona is green. True, false, or what the hell are you talking about? Those are your options. We will discuss the results of this poll on Game Mess Mornings on Giant Bomb tomorrow. Speaking of Giant Bomb, later today, there will be a Blake Club. As far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure that's going to work out just fine. That will be at 3 p.m. Eastern. Again, the time has shifted around a little bit as we've moved things around on our internal schedule. Tomorrow, we will have a voicemail dump truck. I think we will also be playing Helldivers 2. And then on Friday, UPF, I'm going to mod the hell out of a Fallout game. I think I'm going to do... I keep going back and forth between New Vegas and 4, but I'm going to be working on that tonight.
You should do New Vegas because it's the perfect video game.
Yeah, but I want to mod it to hell so it's imperfect and weird. And I know that New Vegas has a certain threshold where like it breaks, but I think it's like 130 mods, and I probably won't be using 130
That reminds
mods.
me, when I did meet Josh Sawyer, it was like a week before my brother got married, and my brother's favorite franchise is Fallout, and his favorite game is New Vegas. And so I bought a copy of Fallout 3 for the PS3. Or Fallout New Vegas for the PS3. And I was like, hey, can you sign this? And he was like, why is it the PS3 version? And I'm like, listen, it's important to me that it's the PS3 version. I know it fucking sucks, but please.
Just say Europe. Just be like,
yeah.
This is what they give us there. All right. Yeah, I'll probably will end up doing Fallout 4 for this, and then I'll play Fallout New Vegas for real, because I've never really played through that game, and I would like to do that. But that reminds me, if anyone has any like funny or fun or weird mods for Fallout 4, send them to me. Hit me on the Discord, hit me on Twitter. I'd appreciate that. I'm going to be doing that work tonight. All right. And then anything else? BCR will happen on Friday. All that good stuff. Yeah, look out for it on giantbomb.com. In the meantime, Lexi, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. I'll be able to annoy you in person at some point this year too, so that'll be fun.
That sounds good. Mike's asking me if he's on anything today. Just Blake Club, I think. I don't think we have anything until then. There's Jan's also got WrestleMania vids coming. He's back. The poop flight has landed. He is safe. You should listen to the Bombcast yesterday if you're wondering about that.
Oh my God, was the Poop City Slammer Jammer what happened in the airplane?
I mean, honestly, at this point, I'm wondering if maybe Jan himself is the Poop City Slammer Jammer. It's impossible to say. We'll dive into this, investigate further. Lexi, once again, thank you. Once again, thank you, everybody. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.